العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tonight's lesson is supposed to be on اللؤلؤ والمرجان فيما اتفق عليه الشيخان Hadith of Bukhari and Muslim. However, looking at the amount of time that we have, which isn't that much for reasons I'm responsible for, we will take just questions tonight in the night ta'ala. We'll try our best to summarize the answers, to keep the answers as short as possible, to the point as possible, even more than what we already do. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. So if there are any questions from the brothers or the sisters here tonight in the masjid, then we'll try our best to give priority. And if not, then we'll see what we have online, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Yes, you.
Naam.
The matter of coming to the masjid and how people should form the rules on where the rule begins.
Right. As far as coming to the masjid early, where does the rule begin? What you asked me about before, reserving a place in the masjid and things like this. Then in brief, the Quranic guidance is to rush forward to do good deeds. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Allah says, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Rush forth to a forgiveness from your Lord, and a garden whose expansiveness is like the heavens and the earth. And Allah says, rush forth to do good deeds. And Allah allows us and tells us and instructs us to compete with each other for good deeds. And from that is coming to the masjid. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged the people to come to the masjid early, and he warned the people from coming to the masjid late for Jum'ah or just in general. As the Prophet ﷺ told us, if they knew the rewards that were held in making the adhan, and the rewards that were held in sitting on the front row, then they didn't find it because it was too crowded, or there were other people there competing with them. He says that the only way that they could take the front row, or who would make the adhan, is for them to draw straws. Okay, and what you have to rock, paper, scissors, shoot. There's no way we can agree, me and you, Khalid. You're there, I'm there. All right, well, we say what? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. We have to find a fair, impartial way of deciding who gets it. In our culture, we don't use straws, pull straws. But in Eastern cultures, a man will go and he'll just indiscriminately pick twigs, 3 of them or 5 of them, and of course they're unequal in length, and he'll hold them in an equal manner to the people disputing. He says, you gotta pick. You pull a straw, quote unquote, piece of wheat, piece of corn, you pull a twig, he pulls a twig, and the one with the longest wins. In other words, it isn't just picking someone with partiality. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a piggy by his toe, right? When you're trying to determine who gets it without being on someone's side, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us, if they knew the rewards that were contained in the adhan, and if they knew the rewards that were contained in the front row, and the only way that they could find it was by doing that, لَاسْتَهَمُوا عَلَيْهِ, then that is what they would have done. So come to the masjid early, sit on the front row early, no doubt is a virtue, and it also prevents you from being late. It prevents you from having to rush. It prevents you from kneeling and kicking people on Jumu'ah. It allows you to get a good seat, to listen to the khutbah, to be closer up to the action, etc., etc., etc. And constant lateness, habitual lateness to the masjid, to the Jama'ah, all of the time, every time, is not a good sign. And there are other narrations with regards to those who catch the first takbirah, those who catch the jama'ah, they catch the first rak'ah with the imam, for a certain amount of time, they will be free from hypocrisy. And there's hadith after hadith after hadith after hadith with regards to the virtue of coming early and the vice or the condemning of coming late. As far as where does the row begin? then obviously, in general, the roll starts from the right side. But if the imam, if it's jama'ah, congregation, and there's no one, the roll has not started yet, then the roll is going to start from the middle, as the narration states, wasitul imam, be in the middle of the imam, right behind the imam. Once somebody is behind the imam, the mu'adhin or not, then from the right. Once the right half is complete, you go towards the left. That's in brief. As far as holding in place in the masjid, then there's nothing wrong with holding in place in the masjid if you stay there. You come early for Jumu'ah, you put your prayer rug down, and you sit there, you make dhikr, you make salah, you make tawbah, you make dua, you read Quran, and you wait for the imam to come. That's fine, that's your spot, no one can take that from you. Or class, you come early to the class, you're sitting there on the front row. As far as reserving a spot, getting up, going, leaving, being gone for a long period of time, then no, that is not to be done. No one is to reserve a spot in which they are not sitting. Whereas the masjid, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ, masjids are supposed to be for all. And if there's no place in the world, New York City, Queens, New York, in which there is equality, then it's supposed to be equality in the masjid. Not in this building, not on these streets, not in this neighborhood, not with this race of people, not in this project. There's inequality. I'm better, you're better, etc., etc. You get more, I get away with it, etc., etc. Right? But in the masjid, it's supposed to be equality. There is no virtue over one man over another, except for good old-fashioned hard work. Who came first? Who came earliest? Who was sitting there waiting for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours for the imam? And reserving a place in the masjid, leaving, going, doing your business is not a manifestation of that equality. So therefore, that's prohibited, as is mentioned in narrations as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best, that shouldn't be done. Wallahu a'lam. Even though we said that the answers were going to be brief. Go ahead, Akhi. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, brother. I just brother a little confused. I don't know how to say that question because we came from the east, southeast. We have a lot of man-made hadiths. Real hadith. It's very hard to know which is right, what is wrong.
Okay.
It's called tabligh jamaat. They make a lot of fabricated hadiths.
Understood.
So anyhow, brother, what I'm saying, because they never talks about real things. Always non-productive issue, like which is you make the mosque, you give this, walk with your wife, lot unnecessary stuff. So
Okay.
anyhow, there one guy says, my friend, he like to know that if somebody walk with, like I am wearing the pants, if your pants go under ankle, in case, then you go to the leg will go to the hellfire.
Okay.
The another brother told me also, he put another reference, that hadith was meant to be that time, the prophet time, the elite class people, they was walking with the, like the elite, all the
Quraysh.
Like they was walking a long dress.
Understood.
With the sword. So that hadith was meant for that time. There's a
Okay.
certain hadith for certain period of time. It is not like for you walking with the pants or pajama, like long dress like you were.
Clear.
If it goes to the floor, then you go to the hellfire. So it is, this is not hadith for this time. It was some hadith meant for that situation.
Okay.
So this is right on number second question, brother, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, I came from far away. And second question, like right now, a lot of brothers, they don't want to buy a house, because of the haram, riba, right? And there is some Islamic banking system here. They say, they will give you the halal loan and this, but how this work? Even I call this, someone calls them, or I call. So we have to they do the same like regular. They go, we check your credit, we check your income, like all those things.
Understood.
So if it's the halal way, we have to be checked with all the information. It has to be like installment payment.
Clear.
So how these things work? Or if you have any real brother who have the halal way, you can give me the information.
Okay.
And I would appreciate that if you can.
Jazakallah khairan. So, the first question in brief, with regards to the mass confusion about many hadiths. Some hadiths are man-made, made up, fabricated. Some hadiths are weak, some hadiths are authentic. How does the layman, the average 9 to 5 person, navigate through that? This group, that group, they claim a hadith, they claim a hadith. The hadiths which are sahih, they differ on the understanding of the hadith. It was for the Prophet's time, it's not for this time, etc. Question 2, with regards to buying a house the halal way and quote-unquote halal mortgages, halal loans. Is it halal? What do we do? Why is it the same, etc. Jazakallah khair. Very important questions. Answer number 1. There lies no doubt there are many widespread hadiths. And all of those hadiths, all of them are authentic. Some are, many of them are, a great number. And many of them are fake. And those that aren't fake, there are many that are weak. So that's a reality that no one can deny. Whether it be in Southeast Asia, Bangladesh, or whether it be in other parts of the world. Some parts of the world are worse than others. That's a fact. And the reason behind that is the presence of knowledge. And where I come from, they have a basic idiom or wise statement. Or one of the most basic things you have in your house is a cat. Most houses have a cat. And they would say when the cat is away, the mice play. When the cat is away, the mice play. When the cat is not there, the mice come into the house, they play around, they run around, they bite things, they leave their waste, etc. The moment you bring the cat around, even if the cat doesn't catch the mice will either vanish or at least they will be fewer in number. And they won't come out as much, as often. And if they come out, it's very quick, a blur. You see it and it's gone because of the cat. And the cat sees things that you don't see. You ever been around a cat and you see the cat's head jerk really quick? You're like, what is the cat doing? What is the cat tripping, bugging, chasing his tail? The next thing you know, 10 minutes later, cat caught a mouse. The cat hears things that you can't hear. And the cat smells things that you cannot smell. Let alone, the mouse can also smell the cat and hear the cat. And perhaps, even with its bad sight, see the cat. So the point of the wisdom is what? Is that whenever there's knowledge, especially knowledge of hadith, those who have an ilm, fiqh of hadith, they've memorized a great portion of hadiths. They are practicing those hadiths. They're learned in the arts of hadith. Then these fabricated hadiths, these storytellers, these iman booster givers, these speakers, these cultural hadiths, they can't come out as much. They don't have the ability to rear their ugly heads. They have to be on the side because they know if you say something wrong, this alim is going to check you. And he's going to say, where's that hadith found? Brother, the Prophet and the companions traveled for such and such amount of years on one horse. Where is that at? Can you show me? And if it isn't a book, show me the isnad. How is that traced back to the Prophet? They're going to feel embarrassed and they're going to be put in check. One of the greatest sins in Islam is to lie upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inna kadhiban alayya laysa kadhibin ala ahadin. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, lying on me isn't the same as lying on anyone else. Even though lying on anyone else is a major sin. But lying on me is graver sin. He says, those who lie on me, those who say about me that which I didn't say, they will take their seats in the fire of hell. So the ulama of hadith, whenever they're around, and whenever they're strong, and whenever there's Islamic knowledge there, those fabricators and those fabricated hadiths, they'll be scared, they'll hide, they won't be around. So Bangladesh or other parts of the world, the solution is more brothers have to study hadiths and promote those hadiths and pump those hadiths and live by those hadiths in which the mice are too scared to come out. And if they do come out, it's only for a short period of time. But it's not the domination. No cat in the house, mice have infested the house. Every 10 hadiths, 7 of them are fake. 10 authentic hadiths, 7 of them are misunderstood, misinterpreted for cultural reasons, for abusing women, for going against different races. 10 hadiths you hear, 7 out of them you don't hear them correctly. 10 hadiths you hear, 8 out of them are made up. 7 of them are weak. Versus when hadith is strong. The scholars and students of hadith are there. Out of 10 hadiths that you hear, 8 of them will be sound. Out of 10 hadiths that you hear, 8 of them will be properly interpreted. So the solution to that problem in Bangladesh and other parts of the world is brothers have to study. They have to take it upon themselves to learn the sunnah and not to be scared. of government, or not to be scared by the cultural influences, or not to be scared by having less. When I was in Medina, I had brothers in my class from different countries. They would tell me, they would say, I'm studying Hadith, I'm trying to get this degree strictly for the sake of Allah. Because when I go back to my country, they won't even acknowledge the Hadith degree. They don't even acknowledge it. He says, if I got a fiqh degree, Sharia, I will be a big timey man in my village. If I graduate from the College of Quran, I will marry the finest, fairest woman on my arrival to the village. Big mola. But Hadith, you barely eat. You barely learn it. So obviously, some people, they fall under that pressure. That cultural pressure, that influence of Hadith is outdated, as you just said. That's for Mecca, it's for Quraysh, that's not for today. So the people that can't complain about lies being made against the Prophet, misunderstandings being made about the Prophet, if they're not willing themselves to what? Turn the tide. And from turning the tide is putting up a strong defense. Those bogus hadiths are not welcome in this country. That misinterpretation that you're doing of the Prophet is not welcomed. And if we hear you quoting that bogus stuff, we're going to clarify that it's bogus. And we're going to warn the people against it. And you're not going to be able to have your agenda while we're living here in Bangladesh. That's the solution. Wherever it may be. As far as the next question, halal mortgage, quote unquote, why do they check your credit first? That's a good question. That's a very good question now. If it's different, if the credit is haram, if the credit is interest, then why is that the first thing that the halal mortgages do as well? That's a serious question now, right? I don't have the answer to that question, okay? I don't run any of those facilities or establishments. I will say this though, and may Allah prevent me from saying something wrong, but I will say what I feel is right, is that in 2021, the concept of you being absolutely free from credit is extremely rare and scarce. And there's a hadith that states that a time will come in which those who do not eat from riba will at least be touched by its dust, by its residue. That is a bogus hadith. But it allows no doubt about it. But it allows no doubt that the meaning of a hadith is tangibly accurate. Those who aren't dealing with the riba directly, taking it, benefiting from it, it's going to touch you somewhere down the line. So people, you go into a brother's meat market, you have a credit card. It's our brother, what do you have a credit card? Sheikh, what this stuff for Allah? It's credit card, Akhi? Can't have a credit card? He said, okay, no problem. I'll go into my wallet and I'll pull out a debit card. It's not a credit card, but it has the same insignia, the same blue JP Morgan Chase color, same chip, same swipe. It's the same establishment. My money is being held in that bank. I'm cashing that check where? At JP Morgan. My money is there, whether it's debit or credit. They're benefiting from it. I have to pay either a monthly fee or a monthly minimum or a yearly fee or a yearly minimum. That $12, that $10, that $5, that $200 minimum, someone is eating from that and benefiting from that. So if you're not taking the credit, using the credit, you're using debit. If you have the credit card and you pay on time, you're not paying the late fees, your money is still being circulated in the system. And the halal mortgages, why are they doing a background check on your credit if that's not important? So it's a problem. What's important is try to fear Allah the best way that you can. Allah knows the troublemaker and Allah knows the peacemaker. As the Quran clearly says, Allah knows the Muslim from the Mufsid. Allah knows this. So you try your best. And alhamdulillah, there are some establishments which are either good, and if they're not absolutely good, then they're better than others. And that's your job and that's your responsibility to take the closest path to the pure dealings. But in 2021, riba is everywhere. It's connected. It's opening up a business, insurance. It's everywhere. So you try your best. That's my honest advice. And there are some establishments which are what? Better than others. And in general, what they do, regardless of the term, murabaha, ijara, all the different fancy terms that they put into Roman transliteration, you don't even understand when you read them. What is murabaha, mudaraba, etc.? In general, they're basically buying the house, or they bought the house, supposedly, and they're selling the house to you, regardless of the nature of your agreement, renting to own, etc., at a higher price, which is similar to riba. The traditional mortgage, over 30 years, you pay, and this way is they're not charging you interest, but that's now the price of the house. $300,000 instead of the house being $250,000. But the actual price from day one is $300,000. All right, and you pay higher, etc. Now, obviously, that's in brief. Okay, I'm not a financial specialist, but that's in brief. And there are ins and outs with regards to who owns the house. Does the bank own the house or the company? If the bank owns the house and the company is selling it to you, then that's clearly problematic. And as I've said before, of course, the riba is one of the most ugly sins, but it is not the only problem with traditional mortgages and the world today. There are many impermissible transactions. And from those impermissible transactions is the concept of the finance, the concept of leasing and leasing finance, the concept of me selling something to you that I myself do not, what? Own. But I'm not presenting myself as an agent or as a third person, a middleman. I'm presenting myself as an actual selling it, and I don't own it. You miss your payments, something goes wrong, what happens? So it's a huge problem with the modern system. In brief, a Muslim owning a house is important in many cases. Many times it's important. Is it a necessity? I don't think every Muslim has to own a house. And I think sometimes owning a house is worse than renting. Sometimes. That's a fact. With regards to costs and stress and problems and responsibility. And there are other times in which owning a house may be necessary, may be mandatory. You have to own a house in this city, in this town. You have to have your own. The Muslims have to have their own. So it depends. May Allah make it easy. Next question. Shaheen, Fadl.
In regards to the river, you say you bought a home in river before you knew better. And then you learned the error. Is it incumbent on you to sell the property or to try to refinance with a halal bank, and which is better?
You made a mistake before, now you're trying to do the right thing. With regards to some type of mortgage or riba or something haram, what should you do? I would say you have to be honest and realistic. If you've paid off the house for 20 years and you have 10 years left or 5 years left, it's best to try to refinance. It's best, maybe if you're forced to just finish it instead of wasting all of that time and money and effort and energy. That's a fact. As far as if you're early in the payments, that's a different story. And the Prophet ﷺ clearly tells us whoever leaves something out for Allah, Allah will give him better. But if you can refinance it, refinance it. Even with refinancing, you're still involved in it. You're still involved in it. You still paid it off. A part of it was initiated through the mortgage, through the interest, etc. So it's still a problem. But right now, we're dealing with what's best. What's best. And the law does not want us to waste our money. That's a fact. Allah does not want us to punish ourselves. Nor does Allah want us to suffer. The law does not want us to suffer or to waste our money or to punish ourselves. Allah wants us to obey Him and to mention Him abundantly and follow His rules. But He does not want us to suffer. So think about it now. It's supposed to take 30 years to pay off this house. I've been paying off the house for 20 years. I got 10 left. Let me try to do what I can with the remaining 10 years. Maybe I can knock it out in 5. It's wrong, but what can I do? Maybe I can refinance it. But just think about it now, guys. 30 years, your children own the house. You own the house. Something happens to your wife, your children, they have a house in which they own. Not the landlord can kick us out. Not the neighborhood is being gentrified or something like that. So you have to be mindful of the reality. So the best thing to do is what you mentioned.
If you're early in the payments, if you're 2 years
If you're 2 years in, you got a lot that's left, definitely try to refinance it. Try to recalibrate it.
So
And if you can't, step away from it.
sell it.
Do whatever you can to remove yourself from that.
Well, actually,
And all is best. We got to move on to the next question. I'm so sorry. Further,
Okay,
Hamza.
my question is, what is the role of a man in a boy in a family, the Islamic way?
The role of a young man in a family?
Not like maybe a 20-year-old.
A grown man. Right. Well, it depends on what he is. He could be a husband, he could be a brother, he could be an uncle, a brother, etc. He should be a role model, good example. Even if he's not the best person, if he has faults, he should try his best to hide them from his little brothers and sisters. At least hide them. I don't want you to see me doing this. I have a weakness, I have a shortcoming, I've had this shortcoming for many years, but I don't want you to see me doing it. And he should try his best to give advice to his younger siblings for them to be better than him. And that could be a way behind the law forgiving him. That could be a way behind him being removed from that problem. The law blessing him. So much good can come in by you being kind to those who are under you. So he should try his best to try to be a role model. And if he can't be a role model, then at least hide his bad, at least. Moving forward, inshallah ta'ala, at 20 years old, you should assist your father in the household, assist your mother in the household. You should try to serve your mother in the household. You should try to be the man of the house, make things easy upon your mother and those in the household when your father isn't there. Inshallah ta'ala. And everything that you do like that, not only will you get a reward, inshallah, but it's going to come back to you when you get married. It's going to come back to you when you have a family. And it's going to come back to you and you gain an experience of home economics. Now, home ec, when I was in school, was a course. Home ec. It wasn't just for women. It was for men or whoever wanted to take the course, right? Many people would laugh, they would joke, so on and so forth. But home ec is a serious thing to know. How to successfully manage a household. Their younger brothers, 18, 19, 20. All they do is laugh, joke, giggle, make fun. If they got married tomorrow, how could they manage a household? By law, how? Do you know how to pay a bill? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to run this? Do you know how to fix nothing? Women, sisters, all they do is laugh, joke, giggle, goof. Can't run a household. They can't cook an egg. They can't open a can of soup. Literally, can't do anything. That's a problem. So by you helping out in the household, helping your mom, helping your dad, not only is that a reward and a hasana, but that's making your life easier. And don't forget that today, Hamza, you are the young guy. And we're the older guys. But tomorrow, you'll be the older guy. So everything that you learn now for free, and when you're not in the game, it's just practice, simulation, you're going to need it when the real game starts. Don't forget that, Hassan. Tomorrow, you're going to be the older brother. They're going to be calling you Brother Hassan. Inshallah, Sheikh Hassan. And these older brothers here with the gray, Allah knows best if they want to be around. People like me that don't have that many gray, alhamdulillah, you can't see my gray hair. I cover it up. If we're still around, do you get the point I'm trying to make? So that's what you or any other young Muslim should try to do in the household. Try to be the best that you can, inshallah, time. And Allah knows best. We're going to move on to the next question. Yusuf. We sit on to Allah.
Like, you know, you explain to like children when they go to school, there's like like obviously the holidays that they may celebrate, like Halloween or whatever. How do you have a conversation with the school? You tell your kid you don't follow that because sometimes they think I'm being mean.
Clear. Before we go on, all right, no problem. People, it's amazing, subhanAllah, how simplistic some people's minds are. Instead of people listening and benefiting and learning, they're concerned in whether I'm drinking with my right hand or not. How can you be paying attention to a class, listening, benefiting, if you drink, is he drinking with his left hand? How can you honestly be, that was a good point. That was very good advice. I never heard the understanding of the hadith before. If you worry about, am I drinking with my right hand or not? That's sad, brothers. And it's happened many times on many social media platforms. It's impossible for you to be paying attention as a benefit, a mustafid, and you're worrying about what the next man is doing. Is it haram to drink with the left hand? What do the scholars of Islam say about drinking with the left hand? Is it haram or is it not haram? Let alone the fact that common sense, guys, it's a camera. It's mirrored camera. We're using the front camera. So everything that you see seems to be what? Opposite. The books behind me are opposite. My pen pocket is going to be heck of that, right? So try your best, guys, to pay attention to the class, to the lecture, and stop worrying about if I'm drinking with my left hand. If I drink my left hand and go to hell, it's not your responsibility. It's not your sin. You will not be asked on the day of judgment, why did this poor servant, Muhammad ibn Munir, drink with his left hand? So guys, you should be mindful. And it's not the first time. It's a huge problem. And I've mentioned before, is that social media comes as a blessing, and oftentimes it comes as a curse. And people, they do and they say what they want through social media because it's only social media. But it's not just Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever. It's a class, a lecture. And the adab, the etiquette of a class or a lecture is to take precedence over the okays and the do's of social media. That's a principle right there. It's okay to say that on normal social media. I can't see this. What's wrong with the connection? LOL, joke, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. That's normal behavior. But the moment Allah and His Messenger are being mentioned, its benefit, some type of dhikr, the etiquette of social media now becomes what? Secondary. Alright, so we should be mindful of that. As far as telling your children or your siblings that we don't celebrate Christmas or Halloween or Thanksgiving or St. Valentine's Day or Cupid, whatever the case may be, then in brief, those things are already supposed to be ingrained in your children, instilled in your children. You're supposed to teach them about the Islamic identity before that. But for argument's sake, they go to non-Muslim school or they go to Muslim Islamic school and they're celebrating those things. You explain to them, you can't be like everybody else. You're different. I'm different. We're different. And we have to sacrifice some things. A big part of us being Muslim is sacrificing. And tell them on the day of judgment, there will be people that will be thirsty and won't have a drop of water. There will be people that they'll be naked, they won't be clothed, they have no clothes on the day of judgment. There are people who will beg to make one prayer on the day of judgment. So what's wrong with Halloween? You get candy, you dress up in a costume, it's fun, right? Seems fun. But everything that seems fun doesn't mean that we're allowed to do it. And we make a sacrifice to please Allah now so that we won't be like that on the day of judgment. And these people who have all of this, who eat, who drink, every day is fun, holiday, vacation, on the day of judgment they will beg just for a drop of water. So you have to teach that to your young son. You have to teach it to your young daughter. And you have to allow them to have fun as Muslim outside of those holidays. Many of us don't know how to have fun. Many of us are mean, too strict, too harsh disciplinarians to our children. Everything's haram, everything's unlawful, even the halal gelatin is pork. What do you want to do? They can't eat gummy worms here, and they can't eat gummy worms there. Something's going to break. Sooner or later, the pressure of the gummy worms is what? No doubt about it.
Under the teeth.
So you have to give them a halal alternative. That's the point I'm trying to make. And Allah knows best.
Sheikh, one
Question from online.
Initial age quiz New York. Is a graduation party for someone who accomplished something such as completing the Quran or an Islamic university completion permissible? And if it is permissible, is it encouraged or discouraged?
There's nothing wrong with having a party, feeding people, having cake, giving a gift upon a major accomplishment, whether it be a spiritual accomplishment or worldly accomplishment. You graduated from engineering school, you finished the Quran, you graduated from Medina, etc. That's fine, inshallah. You came back from Hajj safely, you're about to go to Hajj, you have a small get-together, showing your happiness, your support, your love, etc. Inshallah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Initial age 8 Hamza, Canada. Is it obligatory for the wife to serve her husband and perform household duties or is cooking clean?
Is it obligatory for a woman to serve her husband doing household duties such as cooking and cleaning. There are two views of the scholars of Islam. Some say it is, some say it is not. I say that it goes back to the culture. If it's culturally accepted that a woman is to serve her husband, then it's obligatory. And if it's not like that in the culture, then perhaps it's a different story. Wallahu a'lam. Next question.
Fine.
Mhm.
I have a question.
1 second, inshallah.
Initials AK Niagara Falls, Ontario. Should we reply to a recorded event from a TV or a clock?
Khairan, inshallah. You apply from a pre-recorded adhan or adhan app. Hopefully there's nothing wrong with that. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.
Initials MM, Lexington, Kentucky. Advice to someone who wants to go to Egypt and study with the Mashayikh over there. Barakallahu feekum.
Fikum barakallah from Lexington, Kentucky. Person wants to go study in Egypt and benefit from the scholars there. Go study in Egypt and benefit from the scholars there. Just do it. That's what Nike says. Just do it. Bismillah. Save your money, get your visa, get your passport, go. And go benefit, inshallah.
Initials JM, Bronx, New York. If a husband is not struggling with money, asks his wife to pay a bill, does she have the right to say no if she contributes in other ways?
A husband is not struggling financially. He requests that his wife pays a bill. Does she have the right to say no, etc.? Yes, she does. She does not have to pay the bills. That's not her job or her duty, especially if he's not struggling. However, it may depend and it may differ on their pre-arrangements, their pre-agreements. She may want to update it contract. She may want to revise their agreement. That's fine. But then it takes both parties to do that. All right? And Allah knows best. I believe we've run out of time. We'll stop here tonight. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.